Major support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Colonial Life, providing benefits to employees to help them protect their family, their finances, and their futures. High Point University, the premier life skills university, focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. And Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Trying to make sense of what we've experienced and are experiencing now doesn't stop us from divining what this public health care crisis might mean in the interim as well as the long term. And even if we hold up during this shelter-in-place order and commercial activity goes underground, so to speak, what does this look like for us? Welcome again to the most widely watched program on Carolina business, policy, and public affairs. I am Chris William, and this virtual dialogue, we will invite and be joined by 3 special guests in just a moment, and we start our dialogue now.
Gratefully acknowledging support by Martin Marietta, a leading provider of natural resource-based building materials, providing the foundation upon which our communities improve and grow. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. Visit us at southcarolinablues.com. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Barings, a leading global asset management firm dedicated to meeting the evolving investment and capital needs of its clients. Learn more at barings.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Vicki Lee Parker of the North Carolina Business Council, Mark Farris from the Greenville Area Development Corporation, and special guest, J. Fielding Miller, co-founder and CEO of CAPTRUST.
Welcome again to Carolina Business Review, virtual Carolina Business Review. We welcome now Vicki Lee Parker from the North Carolina Business Council, and both returning, and also the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Greenville Area Development Corp, Greenville, South Carolina, upstate, Mark Farris. Vicki, Mark, welcome to the dialogue, and glad to see you both look healthy and certainly happy to some degree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, let me start with you. Do we need to be careful about drawing too many conclusions as we search, in some cases, desperately search for answers about COVID-19? Do we need to be careful about this unprecedented event, trying to understand it all right now?
I think it's in our nature, Chris, to try to understand it when there's a lack of information. The word unprecedented has been used so much. I'm starting to look for other ways to say it. But yeah, I think we do need to be careful. I think we certainly are gonna look back on this and know that we failed in some of our projections. But that lack of information, that lack of things that you can point to and say, yes, this is a path down the road to prosperity, it rattles a lot of people, and in that absence, they're desperate. And so, we try to make projections. We try to get to the point where we're getting more comfortable with that lack of information. But yeah, we do need to be careful about it because ultimately they're probably going to be wrong.
Vicki, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. With the small businesses that I interact with, one of the things that I try to urge them is to really try to step back and take a deep breath, not to react too quickly. I think with this case, it came on so suddenly, so quickly, and so deeply. It's just human nature to react to that. But we need to pull back and understand that with this, it's unlike what the Great Recession, where we hung in there for a couple of years. From all the forecasts that I'm reading, that's not likely to be the case. So now is the time to kind of step back, assess the situation, and start to try to look for a plan on when things do start to turn the corner, making sure your business is ready for that.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to sound a little hyperbolic, but what we think about 2020 is kind of the lost year.
Well, no, I think it depends on what you know, we are a country, I've, heard that we do like to learn. We learn from the past, we learn from our mistakes. And so there are a lot of things to be learned during this crisis in terms of, our businesses and how prepared they are, our, economy and how prepared we are to handle these types of, deep shifts. So I think, no, I think there's a lot of learning opportunity and a lot of innovation that can come from a situation like this. So there'll be a lot to glean from.
So Mark, what are the glaring weaknesses, the easy ones that we can see now as this is that this has happened?
Well, I think our lack of preparation from a lot of perspectives, the companies, and we fielded a significant number of calls from especially manufacturing companies who thought they were prepared and actually had plans. I mean, obviously they do have plans. They go, safety is their top priority for their employees, but a lot were caught off guard. I had a company call and say, "Wow, I've had an employee test positive. Now what do we do?" And so it was, they really didn't know how to decontaminate, who to call, what were the procedures. And so I think a lot of companies were unprepared who could be prepared for a lot of this. But I think, as Vicki just said, lessons can be learned, and hopefully we'll be better prepared as this continues. Of course, they're talking about a reemergence of it in the fall, and hopefully we'll do a better job of it.
Vicki, as you talk to businesses and some of your constituents across the state of at least North Carolina, what has emerged, as we've all heard, is the divide between rural and urban has been more pronounced, and the debate around broadband access is now been thrust to the front. We've got both general assemblies that are meeting virtually, and in some cases face-to-face. But do you think that this now will force the hand of the state general assemblies to indeed push funding for broadband to the front of the line?
Well, that is the hope. That is certainly the hope. I think, from where I'm sitting, there are a lot of community groups and a lot of businesses that are now engaging that a year ago, even a few months ago, they weren't engaging in terms of reaching out to their state representatives and, signing on letters. So I'm seeing more activity in that. And I think now that voice is starting to be amplified, that business voice, and they start to articulate themselves the need for more broadband in these areas, I think the people downtown are going to start to get an earful. And yes, I think it's definitely going to prompt them. They're not going to be able to just push it aside or, just push it down the road, I should say, as we've done in the past. They're going to have to listen.
Yeah, South Carolina has deeply rural counties like North Carolina. Mark, do you see that debate expanding?
Yeah, I think so, Chris. I see it certainly becoming an issue.
Is it a hope, or do you actually see evidence of that?
Yes, Chris, can we do me a favor? I got caught off guard because I was sitting here reading my screen. Can you question? I apologize.
Yeah, no. The issue is about rural broadband and how the whole idea that this has now become job one in some cases.
Yeah, certainly. I think the South Carolina does have a significant number of rural areas. That is a top priority for us, providing that access to communities. It's an economic development tool, obviously, for being able to recruit companies, especially in the IT sector. And so we're all paying particular attention to it and trying to make sure that's become the next wave of infrastructure. We focused on roads, water, sewer, and the IT section will be that next wave of focus.
As we've seen some pretty epic, and you could almost say scary, unemployment numbers posted so far, at least of our taping date here, April 17th. We had 22 million unemployed on the rolls looking for some type of unemployment claim. Vicki, can we overstate the impact on housing?
On the housing market?
Mm-hmm. Does that translate, in other words, into rents or those who have trouble with their mortgages already?
Yeah, I don't know if you can really overstate that particular issue, because that was, that was a growing issue heading into this. There's some things that, our economy was definitely strong heading into this, and there's some sectors that were really going strong. And again, so in those cases, you may see a quick bounce back. But in terms of the housing and affordable housing, that was a real issue heading into this crisis. And I think it's only going to be exacerbated by it. We just didn't have a strong market in terms of affordable living areas for people, and now that's going to become even more challenging. And it could be an opportunity for those who might want to to develop in that area, but it's definitely going to be a real issue, and I don't think we can really overstate that at this time.
And Mark, specific to South Carolina, does this economic receding of the tide, so to speak, does it reveal the automotive and aerospace uber concentration in industry that South Carolina has? And is that a liability?
Yeah, I think we are potentially exposed in both Carolinas, really. The automotive industry is big in both North and South Carolina. I think that's obviously going to be negatively impacted. It's going to take us a while to recover. Aviation, aerospace, a lot of that's defense related. So that may be less impacted, but certainly the passenger kind of aircraft that Boeing's is making in Charleston and some of the other supplier networks, that'll be negatively impacted until we get back to the point where we can fly freely and safely.
Mm-hmm. Mark, Vicki, please stay with us. We're going to have a chance to question our special guest, who we're going to bring in now. He is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of a firm called CAPTRUST. CAPTRUST is headquartered in North Raleigh in the Triangle of North Carolina. They have 650 employees nationwide. It is a financial services firm that was founded just about 25 years ago, and now $368 billion in assets under management. No small accomplishment. It is as much about an entrepreneurial story as it is about being a financial services firm. We welcome now CEO and co-founder Fielding Miller. So Fielding, welcome to the dialogue. It's taken us so long to, not that you have not said yes or no, but we're glad to have you on the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good to see you.
Fielding, I want to ask you a question that we asked the panel at the top of the show. Do we need to be careful about drawing too many conclusions about something like COVID-19 that is an unprecedented event?
Well, yes, I think so, because it is an unprecedented event. The market reaction to all this is not unprecedented, but when you add to it this incredibly tragic situation with the loss of life and all the things that go around that, it is uncertain in that sense. But, we don't know where this is going to end, right? And the band of possibilities is very wide. I tend to think that this is an incredibly resilient country, and you can't underestimate that. We tend to come together in times of crisis. Just think back to 9/11, and this is an innovative country, and I'm sure that the smartest minds that we have in corporate America and elsewhere are working around the clock to figure some of this out, whether it be vaccines or ventilators or whatever it may be. So you don't hear a lot of talk about that, but I think that's being underestimated. So where does that land? I don't know. And no one else knows, by the way. So I think the point of your question is you do have to be careful.
Fielding, does it change underlying assumptions about investing, about capital markets, and or maybe the broader economy? Do we need to think differently about this now?
The stock market will take care of itself. It always does. I mean, we've been through many shocks like this before. What's a little bit different is how fast it went down. It was very sudden. So that will work its way out. I think what's more complicated is what's going on with small businesses. And Vicki and Mark certainly know this really well. Those are the job creators, right? 60-70% of jobs in America are created by small businesses. And a lot of these businesses don't have the staying power of the larger companies. So you have to worry about that. And unfortunately, these types of events, they weed out the marginal businesses. And longer term, that's a good thing. And that sounds really harsh, but short term, there's a lot of pain there, and you know, it's yet to be seen if that's going to happen. But we're going to lose a lot of companies, and you know, for the next many months.
What kind of comments do you hear from CAPTRUST clients, associates, employees, and those basically in orbit around in your world?
Well, clients are, if we've done our job, Chris, as you well know, you set expectations in advance with clients, and part of that is showing them worst case scenarios. Now, we can't predict pandemics, and we certainly didn't, but you can certainly predict market declines and shocks. So, you know, clients have different goals. You know, they're trying to get from A to B, and therefore, depending on the distance between A and B, they'll tend to take more risk because they have more time to make up for it. So, you know, if they know going in, the more aggressive investors know that their volatility or market slides are going to be greater, and then when it happens, they can respond and not react, which is a huge difference. You know, if it's part of your expectations, if anything, you're leaning into it and looking for opportunities, and that's what we try to do. So if we've done our job, and we feel like we have, it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. And it should, you know, it's normal course of dealing in the equity markets.
Mark, question?
Yeah, we are obviously a capitalist economy, and it seems crass to talk about the opportunities that you just,
Right.
Where are the opportunities you see in this market?
Well, it's been my experience that when these types of dislocations happen, Mark, quality always wins, okay? So when the markets sell off, everything goes down, but the better businesses and companies don't tend to go down as far, and they tend to come back a lot faster, okay? So sometimes there's a tendency to go buy, you know, companies where, you know, the stocks are really low, and you know, they may not be in the greatest industries, but you're saying, well, if it was at 20 and it's at 5, it's got to be a great deal. Well, that great deal might take years to come back. Whereas, you know, look at what happened to Amazon. You know, it was down, you know, substantially, and every day the market goes down. Now it goes up, and it's hitting record highs. So, you know, there are companies like that are going to benefit from this terrible thing, and or this, you know, this market reaction, and you just have to be thoughtful about, you know, making sure that the companies you're buying not only are going to come back, but they're positioned the best for long-term growth, right? So, you know, would you buy Ford because it's cheap? Maybe. I wouldn't. I would buy Amazon because just long-term, if you think 10 years out, and we'll get there, it's going to continue to accelerate. And there's a lot of other companies like that.
Vicki, question?
Yeah, so Phil, I hope you could maybe put things in perspective a little bit, because you hear on the news, and people fear, they constantly compare this to the Great Depression or the, you know, the .com recession. Can you help put it in perspective, or what do you tell your clients in terms of really the numbers when you compare it to, you know, the Great Depression numbers, or in terms of the market, or some of our more recent shocks in the stock market?
Well, remember, in the Great Depression, there was a couple things that are different. One is there was a total bubble. You know, the stock prices were ridiculous. You remember you've seen the pictures of people jumping off the buildings. They were all margined up. So that bubble was there. And also, you know, we went to a protectionist approach. You know, we instead of continuing to trade, we kind of reined things in, and that was probably the biggest contributor to that. Now, that's not the case today. So, you know, I don't think that's the appropriate comparison because I don't believe in the worst case scenario. And while we're going to have incredibly high levels of unemployment, you know, it was 30% during the Depression, and it stayed there for a long time. I don't think we're going to get to 30%, but whatever number we get to, I don't think it's going to stay there for a long time. Now, we're going to have casualties, right, you know, in this. But as I said, you know, this is a situation where, you know, the economy is going to slow, markets are down, but I wouldn't bet against the United States economy. Everybody that's tried that has come up, a loser. So, I feel confident that, once we get through all this pain, we will rebound.
Let's go to the structure of CAPTRUST. 650 employees, 368 or so billion. So, you're a not so small business, and you've got employees now. What percentage of your employees have you deployed to work remotely? Most of
100%. We were early, and I can get into how we prepared to this if you want to, but the 15th, which was a Sunday, we decided we're pulling everybody out of the branches. And we sent out, a emergency text and said, clear out by 5:30 on Monday. And by Tuesday morning, all 100% of our employees and all our branches were working from home, and virtually without a glitch. Now, the reason that we were so prepared is we had a little disaster here about 2.5 years ago when our company headquarters went dark. We had a malfunction in the electrical system, and everything went out. HVAC, elevators, lights, and the fire department wouldn't let us in the building. So you think about being out for a week of your headquarters, that was really bad. So we were reasonably prepared then. We thought we were prepared then. But there were some leaks, right? And so we corrected that. And so this time around, and we certainly didn't, as I said, predict this type of situation, but we were well prepared. And the idea I mentioned earlier, we were able to respond and we weren't on our heels.
Well, and let me unpack this a little bit. So financial services, obviously highly regulated industry, and you've got, and I guess I'm going to ask you to take what you've learned so far with all of your employees working remotely. Mm-hmm. You've got productivity accountability, you've got a level of compliance, and you also have a level of oversight when it comes to a regulatory aspect. So if you're able to work through that, do you feel confident that many businesses who have not even entertained the idea of pushing everyone out remotely, you think they can get there fairly easily?
Do you mean just like in a situation like this, or to stay, like more work from home afterwards?
Well, I mean, good point. So both now, because it's an emergency, but also do you think that productivity remotely will end up being a given?
Well, I think after this, everybody will have to figure this out, right? Because this won't be our last situation. We are not a work from home business, or really an industry. We need clients want to come in and visit with you for sure. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to go on. And so we get asked this, we have a survey every summer, and this question comes up every single time. And I have to say, look, this is not who we are. There's a handful of jobs that we could do from home, but that's not what we do. Now, IBM, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple decades ago, they were the pioneer of virtual work from home strategy. And just in the last, I think 18 months ago, they brought everybody back. Yeah. So that says a lot, right? They're super technology oriented, and I certainly prefer that. Now, one benefit of all this is we're all getting more comfortable with these virtual meetings. And that will allow more flexibility with your workforce when they need to be home, when they've got a sick child, when they got to meet the cable person, the cable guy, whatever. So I think that will get better. And also, clients are getting more comfortable with communicating virtually, and that's a positive because, especially on the institutional side, where we have to go out every quarter. Actually, we want to go out every quarter. We don't have to. And so you could easily do a couple of those meetings a year virtually, and that would be it would be much more efficient from a time and a travel cost standpoint.
We have about a minute left. Mark, do you have a quick question? Fielding, both Carolinas are tremendously international, and we have a lot of companies that have invested in both Carolinas. We were talking earlier about the deglobalization trend that even started before the pandemic, but are you comfortable about overseas markets now? Do you feel that's an opportunity?
Yeah, I don't think that will ever stop. I mean, it's a global economy. It's here to stay. I think politically, there's going to be more pressure to become more nationalistic, immigration, things like that. I think unfortunately, we found out that we're too reliant on certain companies for certain things like ventilators and gloves and masks and pharmaceuticals. Those statistics are quite staggering. So I think we'll get a lot smarter with that, but we will be doing business globally forever and probably more and more over time.
Fielding, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry it's taken us so long to extend the invitation to you, but congratulations on what you've done with CAPTRUST and also with leaning into ECU and a great gift to the entrepreneurial group over there. But thanks for being on our program and best of luck to you going forward.
Thank you, Mark. Chris, Mark, and Vicki.
I know what you mean, but thank you, Mark, and thank you, Vicki, for joining us as well. We hope you all stay safe, and thank you for watching this program.
Okay.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review provided by High Point University, Martin Marietta, Colonial Life, the Duke Endowment, Barings, Grant Thornton, Sonoco, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, and by viewers like you. Thank you.